The alarm clock buzzed at 5:30 a.m., jolting Tanya from her sleep. She quickly silenced it before it could wake up her husband Michael, who was still peacefully snoring beside her. Tanya smiled as she watched him sleep for a moment, his face relaxed and untroubled. 10 years of marriage had passed between them. A decade filled with ups and downs, laughter and tears, but through it all, they had stayed together. Tanya slipped quietly out of bed and tiptoed to the bathroom. She had been planning this surprise for months now, and with their anniversary just 3 days away, everything needed to be perfect. As she brushed her teeth, she mentally went through her checklist again. Tickets to the charity gala at the Grand Theater, purchased and hidden in her old nursing textbook where Michael would never look. Her dress? Hanging in her friend Diane's closet to avoid any chance of Michael finding it. The time off from her nursing shifts? Arranged with her supervisor, who had been more than understanding when Tanya explained how important this anniversary was. At the hospital where she worked, Tanya changed into her scrubs and greeted her colleagues with a bright smile. Her friend Diane caught up with her in the break room during their morning coffee. "Everything ready for the big night?" Diane asked, keeping her voice low even though they were alone. Tanya nodded, unable to contain her excitement. "Almost. I just need to pick up the dress from your place tomorrow. Michael has no clue, right?" "None whatsoever," Tanya replied with a small laugh. "The man has completely forgotten our anniversary is coming up. But I'm not upset about it. His accounting firm has been swamped with that big corporate audit, and he's been working overtime for weeks." Diane gave her a look. "Girl, I would be furious if my husband forgot our anniversary." Tanya shrugged. "That's just how Michael is. He gets so focused on work that everything else fades into the background. Besides, his forgetfulness is making my surprise even easier to pull off." What Tanya didn't say was how she'd been saving for 6 months to afford the tickets to the charity gala. At $200 per person, they weren't cheap. But the Grand Theater's annual event was the highlight of the social calendar in their community. Famous performers would be there, along with local celebrities and business leaders. It was exactly the kind of elegant night out that they never allowed themselves anymore, not with their mortgage and Michael's student loans still hanging over their heads. During her lunch break, Tanya called the theater to confirm their reservation. She remembered how Michael had taken her to that same theater on their second date, back when they were both struggling students. They had watched a local production of a musical from the cheapest seats in the house, but it had been magical nonetheless. Michael had held her hand the entire time, and afterward, they had splurged on ice cream cones that they ate while walking along the river. That memory was partly why she had chosen the theater for their anniversary celebration. She wanted to remind Michael of their earlier days together, before life had become a never-ending cycle of work and bills and responsibilities. When Tanya arrived home that evening, she found Michael hunched over his laptop at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and empty coffee mugs. His tie was loosened and his usually neat hair was sticking up at odd angles from running his fingers through it repeatedly. "Hey," she said softly, setting her bag down. "Have you eaten anything?" Michael looked up, blinking as if emerging from a trance. "What time is it?" "Almost 8. I brought some takeout." She held up a brown paper bag. "Your favorite noodles from that Chinese place you like." A tired smile crossed his face. "You're amazing, you know that?" They ate dinner together, though Michael's attention remained partially on his work. Tanya didn't mind. She understood the pressure he was under. His accounting firm had recently taken on several new clients, and as one of the younger partners, Michael felt he had to prove himself constantly. "How much longer do you think this audit will take?" she asked, twirling noodles around her fork. Michael sighed. "At least another week. Maybe more if we keep finding discrepancies." He rubbed his eyes. "I'm sorry I haven't been much company lately." "It's okay. I know how important this is." Tanya paused, then carefully added, "Any chance you could take off early next Friday, though?" Michael frowned, trying to remember his schedule. "Friday? I don't think so. Why?" Tanya kept her expression neutral. "No reason. Just thought it might be nice to have dinner together without the laptop as our third wheel." "I'll try," he promised, though they both knew it was unlikely. Later that night, as Michael finally came to bed, Tanya pretended to be asleep. She listened to him moving around in the dark, the familiar sounds of him setting his alarm, placing his phone on the nightstand, and finally, the dip of the mattress as he slid beneath the covers. He placed a gentle kiss on her shoulder before turning away. The next day at work, Tanya stopped by the gift shop in the hospital lobby during her break. She browsed through the selection of cards, looking for the perfect anniversary message. Nothing seemed right, too cheesy, too formal, too generic. Eventually, she bought a simple blank card, deciding she would write her own message instead. That evening, while Michael was working late at the office, Tanya sat at their kitchen table with the card open in front of her. What could she say after 10 years together? How could she put into words what their marriage meant to her? She thought about their journey, from their first meeting at a mutual friend's birthday party, through their wedding in her parents' backyard, to buying their modest home 3 years ago. She thought about the hard times, too. The miscarriage in their 3rd year of marriage that had nearly broken them. The fight they'd had when Michael accepted his current job without discussing it with her first. The months of silence and hurt that had followed his mother's cutting remarks about Tanya's family at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. But they had weathered it all. They had fought and made up, cried and laughed, drifted apart and found their way back to each other. That was what marriage was, Tanya had learned. Not the perfect fairy tale she had imagined as a young girl, but a real, messy, beautiful commitment to stand by someone even when it was difficult. Especially when it was difficult, she began to write, her pen moving across the paper as she poured her heart out. She told Michael how proud she was of his hard work and determination, how she still found herself smiling whenever she thought of him unexpectedly throughout her day, how their love had changed over the years, less desperate and all-consuming than in the beginning, but deeper, more solid, like roots that had grown intertwined beneath the surface. By the time she finished writing, tears were sliding down her cheeks. She carefully folded the card and slipped it into its envelope, sealing it with a kiss before hiding it with the tickets in her nursing textbook. The day before their anniversary, Tanya left work early to pick up her dress from Diane's house. It was a deep blue number that she had splurged on. Knowing the color complemented her dark skin perfectly, Diane helped her try it on one last time. "You look gorgeous," Diane said, adjusting the straps. "Michael won't know what hit him." Tanya smiled at her reflection. "I just want him to remember why we fell in love in the first place. We've both been so busy lately. It feels like we're just roommates sometimes, passing each other on the way to our separate lives." Diane squeezed her shoulder. "This will be good for both of you. A chance to reconnect." That night, Tanya carefully hid the dress in the back of their closet behind her winter coats. Michael came home late again, looking exhausted but satisfied. "We finally found the source of the discrepancy," he announced as he collapsed onto the couch. "It's been driving us crazy for weeks." "That's great," Tanya said, genuinely happy for him. "Does that mean you'll be working normal hours again soon?" "God, I hope so." Michael sighed, closing his eyes. "I'm sorry I've been so absent lately." Tanya sat beside him and began massaging his shoulders. "It's okay. I know you're doing what you have to do." After a moment, she added casually, "Don't forget, I switched shifts, so I'll be off tomorrow." Michael murmured in acknowledgement, already half asleep under her soothing touch. Tanya smiled to herself, imagining his surprise tomorrow when she revealed her plans for their anniversary celebration. She pictured them dressed up and elegant at the charity gala, dancing together beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Grand Theater, reconnecting as a couple away from the stresses of everyday life. It would be perfect, she thought. A night to remember, a celebration worthy of 10 years together, and a promise of many more to come. Little did she know that the evening she had planned so carefully would unfold in ways she never could have imagined. The morning of their 10th anniversary dawned bright and clear. Tanya woke up early, her heart fluttering with excitement. She reached over to touch Michael's side of the bed, only to find it empty and cold. She frowned, then remembered he had mentioned something about an early meeting at the office. Of course, she thought. Even on their anniversary, she pushed away the twinge of disappointment. Tonight would make up for everything. Tonight would remind them both of what really mattered. Tanya spent the morning cleaning the house and running last-minute errands. She stopped at the florist to pick up a boutonniere for Michael, a single white rose that would complement his charcoal suit perfectly. At the bakery, she ordered his favorite chocolate cupcakes for a late-night dessert after they returned from the gala. Around noon, her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Sorry, crazy day. Might be home a bit later than usual." Tanya texted back, "No problem. But please try to be home by 6, I have a surprise." 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, I'll do my best, Tanya sighed. She understood his dedication to his job, but sometimes she wished she ranked higher on his priority list. Still, she refused to let anything dampen her spirits today. At 5:30, she started getting ready, taking her time with her makeup and hair. She carefully applied her favorite perfume, the one Michael had given her 2 Christmases ago. The bottle was nearly empty now. He hadn't noticed she needed a new one. As she slipped into her blue dress, she admired how it hugged her curves in all the right places. The last time she had dressed up this fancy was for her cousin's wedding 3 years ago. At 6:15, Tanya heard the front door open. "I'm home," Michael called out. "Sorry I'm late." "I'm upstairs," she called back. "Take a shower and put on your charcoal suit, please." "My suit? What's going on?" "It's a surprise. Just trust me." She heard him climbing the stairs, and then he appeared in the doorway of their bedroom. He stopped short when he saw her, his tired eyes widening. "Wow," he said softly. "You look incredible." Tanya smiled, a warm glow spreading through her chest. This was what she had been waiting for. The look on his face made all the planning worth it. "Thank you," she said. "Now hurry up. We have reservations." "Reservations where?" Michael asked, already loosening his tie. "You'll see. Just wear your good suit, okay? The one you wore to that client dinner last month." While Michael showered, Tanya retrieved the tickets and her card from their hiding place. She slipped them into her small clutch purse along with her phone and a tube of lipstick. When Michael emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, she was sitting on the edge of the bed waiting patiently. "So what's the occasion?" he asked as he pulled his suit from the closet. Tanya raised an eyebrow. "You really don't know?" Michael paused, a flicker of panic crossing his face. He was mentally scrolling through important dates, she could tell. "Birthdays? No holidays?" "No, wait, oh God," he said, his face falling. "It's our anniversary." "Bingo," Tanya replied, trying to keep her tone light despite the sting of disappointment. 10 years today. Tanya, I'm so sorry. With everything at work, I completely—" She held up a hand to stop him. "It's okay. I knew you'd forget. That's why I planned something special." She stood up and straightened his collar. "Just hurry up so we're not late." Michael dressed quickly, the silence between them growing heavier with each passing minute. Tanya could see the guilt eating at him, and part of her felt bad for making him feel worse, but another part wanted him to feel it, to understand what it meant to be forgotten. As they drove to the theater, Michael kept glancing at her. "Where are we going?" "The Grand Theater," Tanya said, a small smile playing on her lips. "The theater? Wait, isn't that where we went on our second date?" The fact that he remembered made her heart lift a little. "You got it. That's really thoughtful, Tanya." He reached over and squeezed her hand. "I'm sorry I didn't plan anything." "It's fine," she said, squeezing back. "You've been busy." They arrived at the theater just after 7 p.m. The building was lit up beautifully with red carpet extending from the entrance and well-dressed people streaming inside. Tanya felt a flutter of nervousness. This was definitely a fancier crowd than they usually socialized with. But that was part of the appeal. One night of luxury, of pretending they were the kind of couple who regularly attended galas and charity events. As Michael found a parking spot, he frowned at the crowd. "What's going on tonight? Some kind of special event?" "Yes," Tanya said, excitement creeping back into her voice. "It's the annual charity gala. They have performers, an auction, dancing. It's supposed to be amazing." Michael's frown deepened. "Charity gala? That sounds expensive." "Don't worry about that," Tanya said quickly. "It's all taken care of." They walked arm in arm toward the entrance, joining the stream of elegantly dressed couples. Tanya could feel Michael tensing beside her as they approached the ticket counter, where a sign clearly displayed the prices. $200 per person. "Tanya," he whispered urgently, "did you see how much the tickets cost?" "Yes," she replied calmly. "I know. $400 for one night?" His voice rose slightly, earning them curious glances from a nearby couple. "We can't afford that." "Not with the mortgage payment due next week and the car needing new tires." Tanya felt her cheeks grow warm with embarrassment. "Lower your voice," she murmured. "It's fine. I've been saving for this." Michael stopped walking, pulling her to a halt beside him. "Saving without telling me?" "Tanya, we agreed to discuss any expenses over $100. "It's our anniversary," she said, her earlier excitement dimming rapidly. I wanted to surprise you. A surprise is a nice dinner, maybe a new tie. Not blowing half our monthly mortgage on one night out. The ticket collector, a young man in a crisp uniform, looked their way expectantly. Tickets, please. Michael stared at the man, then back at Tanya, his expression a mix of confusion, embarrassment, and growing anger. We don't, he began. We do. Tanya cut him off, opening her clutch and pulling out the tickets. She handed them to the collector with a forced smile. Here you go. The young man checked the tickets and nodded. Enjoy your evening, Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds. As they moved past the ticket counter into the grand lobby, Michael grabbed Tanya's elbow. You already bought the tickets? Without discussing it with me? Tanya pulled her arm free. I wanted to do something special for our anniversary. Something memorable. Something financially irresponsible, you mean? Michael's voice was low but sharp. Tanya, we're still paying off my student loans. We're trying to save for a home renovation. We can't just throw money around like this. It's one night, Tanya said, her own anger rising to match his. One special night after 10 years of marriage. 10 years of me supporting your career, of me taking extra shifts so you could take that unpaid internship, of me putting my own dreams on hold. Michael's face hardened. That's not fair. We agreed on those decisions together, just like we agreed to remember our anniversary, to prioritize our marriage over work occasionally. Tanya was aware that her voice was rising, but she couldn't seem to control it. Several people nearby were glancing in their direction now. Let's not do this here, Michael said through gritted teeth. He took her elbow again, more gently this time, and guided her toward a quieter corner of the lobby. Look, I appreciate the thought behind this, I do. But we need to be practical about our finances. We can't afford luxuries like this right now. It's not a luxury, it's an investment in our marriage, Tanya insisted. When was the last time we did something special together? Just the two of us? Michael ran a hand through his hair in frustration. That's not the point. The point is that you made a major financial decision without consulting me. That's not how marriage works. Oh, and forgetting our anniversary is how marriage works? Tanya shot back. They stared at each other, the distance between them suddenly feeling much wider than the few inches that separated them physically. Around them, other couples chatted and laughed, completely unaware of the storm brewing between Tanya and Michael. A server passed by with a tray of champagne flutes. Michael grabbed two and handed one to Tanya. Let's just try to enjoy the evening. We're here now. The money's spent. Tanya accepted the champagne, but the bubble of excitement that had carried her through the day had completely deflated. This wasn't at all how she had imagined their anniversary celebration. In her mind, Michael had been surprised but delighted, grateful for her thoughtfulness, ready to dance and laugh and reconnect with her. Instead, he was angry, disappointed in her even, and she was starting to wonder if she had made a mistake after all. As they moved further into the gala, neither speaking to the other, Tanya couldn't help but think that the fancy clothes and expensive tickets couldn't disguise the fundamental problem. Somewhere along the way, she and Michael had stopped being partners. They had stopped seeing each other, really seeing each other, and she wasn't sure if a single night, no matter how special, could fix that. The heavy wooden doors of the Grand Theater opened to a world that seemed to belong in a movie. Tanya paused at the entrance, momentarily forgetting the tension between her and Michael as she took in the scene. The main hall glittered with golden light from vintage chandeliers. Well-dressed people mingled, their laughter mixing with the soft music played by a string quartet in the corner. For a moment, she felt like she didn't belong here, like someone might tap her on the shoulder and politely ask her to leave. Michael stood beside her, his face unreadable. She could feel the stiffness in his arm as she held onto it. Shall we? She asked, trying to inject some enthusiasm into her voice. Michael nodded stiffly. Since we're here, we might as well make the most of it. A waiter approached with a tray of champagne flutes. Michael took two and handed one to Tanya. Their fingers brushed, and for a second, Tanya thought she saw his expression soften. But then he looked away, scanning the room with a slight frown. There's a lot of important people here, he muttered. Look, isn't that the mayor over there? And the owner of that tech company that just moved into town? Tanya sipped her champagne. I didn't come here to network, Michael. I came here to celebrate our anniversary with you. He gave her a sideways glance. $400 worth of celebration. Tanya bit her lip to keep from snapping back. This wasn't how the evening was supposed to go. In her imagination, Michael had been surprised but delighted, grateful for her thoughtfulness. not angry and resentful. A tall man in a perfectly tailored suit approached them with a smile. "Good evening. I'm Robert Chen, one of the organizers. First time at our annual gala?" Tanya nodded, relieved for the interruption. "Yes, we're celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary." "Wonderful. Congratulations to you both. We've got a fantastic evening planned. Dinner starts in about 20 minutes, then we'll have the charity auction followed by dancing. The money we raise tonight goes to fund arts education programs in underprivileged schools across the city." "That's a wonderful cause," Tanya said sincerely. Robert beamed. "It is indeed. Last year we raised enough to bring music programs back to 5 elementary schools. The tickets alone cover our costs for the event, so every dollar spent in the auction goes directly to the children." He gestured toward a side room. "Speaking of which, feel free to browse the auction items before dinner. We have some incredible packages this year." As he moved away to greet other guests, Michael turned to Tanya. "An auction? You didn't mention that." "I didn't think it mattered," Tanya replied carefully. "We don't have to bid on anything." Michael's jaw tightened again. "So everyone here will be throwing money around except us? Great, that won't be awkward at all." "No one will notice or care," Tanya said, trying to keep her voice even. "Can we please just try to enjoy ourselves? It's our anniversary, Michael. You keep saying that like it justifies everything." Michael drained his champagne glass. "Like I'm supposed to be happy about you spending hundreds of dollars without discussing it with me." A chime sounded, signaling that dinner was about to be served. Tanya was grateful for the distraction. They followed the crowd into the grand ballroom, where dozens of round tables were set with fine china and crystal. Each centerpiece featured a small sculpture created by a student from one of the arts programs they were supporting. A young woman in a black dress consulted a tablet. "Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds? You're at table 7, right this way." Their table was already half full. A middle-aged couple with matching silver hair smiled as they approached. The woman extended her hand. "Hello there. I'm Vivian, and this is my husband Philip. Are you supporters of the Arts Education Initiative?" Before Tanya could answer, Michael spoke up. "Actually, my wife surprised me with tickets. I had no idea we were coming until a few hours ago." There was an edge to his voice that made Tanya wince. The other couple exchanged a quick glance. "Well, what a lovely surprise," Philip said diplomatically. "Special occasion?" "Our 10th anniversary," Tanya replied, forcing a smile. "Congratulations," Vivian said. 10 years is quite an accomplishment these days." As they sat down, 2 more couples joined their table. Introductions were made all around. One couple owned a local chain of furniture stores. The other were both doctors at the university hospital. Tanya mentioned she was a nurse, and Michael said he was an accountant, leaving out the part about how they could barely afford to be there. The first course arrived, a delicate salad with goat cheese and candied walnuts. Tanya tried to enjoy it, to appreciate this rare night out, but each time she looked at Michael, she saw his displeasure. He was polite enough to the others at the table, answering questions and making small talk, but he barely looked at her. "So how did you two meet?" Vivian asked, clearly trying to ease the noticeable tension between them. Tanya started to answer, but Michael jumped in. "At a friend's birthday party. Tanya spilled her drink on me, and I asked for her number so she could pay for my dry cleaning." His tone was lighter now, almost teasing, and Tanya felt a small flicker of hope. The table laughed, and Tanya smiled despite herself. This story was their go-to at social gatherings, a well-rehearsed bit that never failed to break the ice. "And did she ever pay for that dry cleaning?" Philip asked with a wink. "No," Michael replied, his eyes finally meeting Tanya's. "But she did agree to have coffee with me, so I'd say I came out ahead." There was a warmth in his gaze now that had been missing all evening. Tanya felt herself relax a little. Maybe the night wasn't ruined after all. The main course was served. Roasted chicken with seasonal vegetables and a wine sauce. As they ate, conversation flowed more easily around the table. Michael seemed to be warming up to the evening, even laughing at Philip's terrible jokes. When he refilled Tanya's wine glass without being asked, she felt another small surge of hope. But then the conversation turned to the auction. "Have you looked at the items up for bid?" asked one of the doctors. "There's an amazing weekend package at that new luxury resort on the lake. We've got our eye on the private cooking class with Chef Antoine," said the furniture store owner. "What about you two? Seen anything you like?" Michael's expression shuddered again. "We're just here for the experience," he said flatly. "Not planning to bid." An awkward silence fell over the table. Tanya felt her cheeks grow warm with embarrassment. "The food alone is worth the price of admission," she said quickly, trying to smooth over the moment. "And it's for such a good cause." "Absolutely," Vivian agreed kindly. "The arts programs make such a difference in children's lives." The conversation moved on, but the damage was done. Michael had withdrawn again, his responses becoming more clipped, his posture stiff. Tanya could feel the evening slipping away from her, all her hopes for a romantic anniversary celebration crumbling. Dessert was served, individual chocolate cakes with raspberry sauce and a dollop of whipped cream. Under different circumstances, Tanya would have been delighted. Chocolate was Michael's favorite, and the cake looked divine. But now she could hardly bring herself to taste it. "I need to use the restroom," she said, setting her napkin beside her plate and standing up. She needed a moment alone, away from Michael's coldness and the pitying glances of their tablemates. In the elegant ladies' room, Tanya stood before the mirror, taking deep breaths. This was not how their 10th anniversary was supposed to be. She had imagined them dancing, laughing, reconnecting. Instead, they were further apart than ever. A tear slipped down her cheek and she wiped it away angrily. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not now. She reapplied her lipstick, straightened her shoulders, and headed back to the ballroom. As she approached their table, she saw that the auction had begun. A woman in a sequined gown was at the microphone, describing a weekend getaway package. Michael was staring at his dessert, pushing it around with his fork. He didn't look up as she sat down, going once, going twice. "Sold for $3,500 to number 127. The auctioneer's voice rang out, followed by applause. "Our next item is a private wine tasting tour for 6 people, donated by Valley Vineyards. We'll start the bidding at $1,000. Several hands went up around the room. Philip raised his paddle, joining the bidding. "Can you believe these prices?" Michael whispered to Tanya, his voice tight with disapproval. "People throwing money away like it's nothing." "It's for charity," Tanya whispered back. "And these people can afford it?" "Unlike us," Michael replied. "We don't belong here, Tanya. This was a mistake." Something in Tanya snapped. All the disappointment and hurt of the evening boiled over into anger. "The only mistake," she hissed, "was thinking you might put our marriage ahead of money for once. 10 years, Michael. 10 years, and you couldn't even remember our anniversary. I wanted one special night. One night to feel like we matter." Michael's face darkened. "Don't you dare make this about me forgetting. This is about you being financially irresponsible. No, this is about you caring more about your precious budget than about us." Tanya was aware that her voice had risen slightly, earning curious glances from nearby tables. "When was the last time we did anything special together? When was the last time our marriage came first?" "That's not fair," Michael said, his voice rising to match hers. "I work hard to give us a good life, and I don't?" Tanya cut him off. "I pull extra shifts, I skip lunches out, I haven't bought new clothes in months, also we—" The Grand Theater's ballroom was truly grand. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, casting a warm glow over the crowd below. Round tables dressed in white linen surrounded a polished wooden dance floor, where a few couples were already swaying to the music of a small orchestra. Everything sparkled. The glasses, the jewelry, the smiles of people who didn't seem to worry about things like mortgage payments or car repairs. Tanya and Michael followed a waiter to their assigned table. 3 other couples were already seated there, all of them looking as if they belonged in this glittering world. Tanya smoothed her dress nervously as they approached. "Hello," said a woman with perfectly styled silver hair. "I'm Vivian, and this is my husband Thomas." Introductions were made all around the table. The other couples were the Hendersons, who owned a chain of local hardware stores, and the Pratts, who worked in real estate. Tanya mentioned that she was a nurse, and Michael said he was an accountant, leaving out the part about how they could barely afford to be there. "What brings you to the gala?" asked Mr. Henderson. "Supporting any particular charity tonight?" Tanya glanced at Michael before answering. "Actually, it's our 10-year anniversary." "Oh, how wonderful." Mrs. Pratt clasped her hands together. 10 years is a milestone worth celebrating." Michael forced a smile and nodded, but Tanya could see the tension in his jaw. He was still upset about the tickets. The first course was served, a delicate salad with goat cheese and walnuts. Tanya tried to enjoy it, to savor this rare night out, but each time she looked at Michael, she saw his displeasure. He was polite enough to the others at the table, answering questions and making small talk, but he barely looked at her. "So, how did you two meet?" Mrs. Henderson asked. Before Tanya could answer, Michael jumped in. "At a friend's birthday party. Tanya spilled her drink on me and I asked for her number so she could pay for my dry cleaning." The table laughed and Tanya felt a small flicker of hope. This was the Michael she knew. Charming, funny, the man who could work a room. Maybe the evening wasn't ruined after all. "And did she ever pay for that dry cleaning?" asked Mr. Thomas with a wink. "No," Michael replied, his eyes finally meeting Tanya's. "But she did agree to have coffee with me, so I'd say I came out ahead in that deal." There was a softness in his gaze now, a hint of the connection they usually shared. Tanya smiled back at him, and for a moment the tension between them eased. The main course was served: roasted chicken with seasonal vegetables and a wine sauce. As they ate, Tanya found herself relaxing. The food was delicious, the company pleasant, and Michael seemed to be warming up to the evening. When he refilled her wine glass without being asked, she felt another small surge of hope. "Would you like to dance?" he asked as the dishes were being cleared away. Tanya nodded, surprised and pleased. He stood and offered his hand, leading her to the dance floor where other couples were swaying to the orchestra's rendition of an old love song. Michael's hand settled on her waist, familiar and warm. They moved together easily, their bodies remembering the rhythm they had perfected over a decade of marriage. "I'm sorry for overreacting earlier," he said quietly, his breath warm against her ear. "It was just a shock seeing those prices." "I know," Tanya replied. "I should have told you about it beforehand. I just wanted to surprise you." It was a thoughtful surprise. He pulled back slightly to look at her. "I've been taking you for granted lately, haven't I?" The simple admission made her throat tighten with emotion. "We both get caught up in day-to-day stuff. It's easy to forget the big picture." He nodded, pulling her closer again. "I love you, Tanya. That hasn't changed in 10 years. I love you too," she whispered back. They danced in silence for a while, letting the music and the moment heal the rift between them. Tanya rested her head on his shoulder, breathing in his familiar scent. This was what she had wanted, this connection, this reminder of who they were together. When the song ended, they returned to their table hand in hand. Dessert was being served, individual chocolate cakes with raspberry sauce and a dollop of whipped cream on top. The sight made Tanya smile. Chocolate was Michael's favorite. As they sat down, Mrs. Pratt was in the middle of a story about her grandson's soccer game. Tanya listened politely, her hand still linked with Michael's under the table. The evening had been saved. Despite the rocky start, their anniversary celebration was turning out to be special after all. Then Mr. Henderson asked the question that shattered their fragile peace. "So, Michael, will you be bidding on anything in the silent auction? I saw some excellent golf packages." Michael stiffened beside her. "Silent auction?" Tanya felt her stomach drop. She hadn't mentioned the auction because she knew they couldn't afford to participate. The tickets had been her one splurge. "Oh yes," Mrs. Henderson said enthusiastically. "It's the main fundraising portion of the evening. Last year Thomas and I won a weekend in wine country. It was divine." Michael turned to Tanya, his expression hardening again. "Is there an auction?" "Yes," she admitted quietly. "But we don't have to bid on anything. The tickets themselves include a donation to the charity." "What charity?" Michael's voice had taken on that tight, controlled quality that meant he was angry but trying not to show it. Tanya realized with a flash of embarrassment that she didn't know. She had been so focused on the experience, on what the night would mean for their marriage, that she hadn't paid attention to the cause they were supposedly supporting. I'm not sure," she stammered. "It's for a good cause, though." The others at the table were watching them now, sensing the tension. Michael's grip on her hand had turned painful. "You spent $400 of our money on tickets to a charity gala, and you don't even know what charity it's for." His voice was low but intense. Tanya pulled her hand away. "I told you I've been saving for this. It's our anniversary." "So you keep saying." Michael shook his head. "But this isn't us, Tanya. We're not these people." He gestured around at the opulent room, the wealthy guests. "We're the people who worry about mortgage payments and car repairs. We're the people who save for vacations and home improvements. We don't blow hundreds of dollars on one night out." "It's one night," Tanya insisted, her own anger rising again. "One special night in 10 years. Is that really so much to ask?" "It is when we can't afford it." The others at the table were now studiously looking away, pretending to be absorbed in their desserts or the orchestra or anything but the argument unfolding beside them. "We can afford it," Tanya hissed. "I made sure of that. I picked up extra shifts, I skipped lunches out, I didn't buy those shoes I wanted. You did all that without telling me? Without discussing it with me?" Michael's voice rose slightly. "That's not how marriage works, Tanya. We're supposed to be partners. We make decisions together. Like you decided to work late every night for the past 3 months? Like you decided to forget our anniversary?" Tanya was aware that she was making a scene, but she couldn't seem to stop herself. All the disappointment and frustration she had been holding back came flooding out. "When was the last time you consulted me about your decisions, Michael? When was the last time our marriage came first for you? That's different. My job puts food on our table, pays our bills, and my job doesn't." Tanya's voice cracked with emotion. "I contribute too, Michael. I work hard too, but I still make time for us, for our marriage. When was the last time you did that?" Michael's face flushed dark with anger. "This is not the place for this conversation." "Of course not," Tanya said bitterly. "It never is the right time, is it? There's always something more important than us." She stood abruptly, needing to get away from the table, from the pitying looks of the other couples, from Michael's anger. But as she turned, her elbow knocked against Michael's dessert plate, sending it sliding toward him. Michael jumped up to avoid the falling cake, bumping the table and causing glasses to wobble. In his haste to steady a tipping wine glass, he grabbed the edge of his dessert plate, flipping it upward. Time seemed to slow down as the chocolate cake sailed through the air in a perfect arc, landing with a soft splat against the front of Tanya's blue dress. A collective gasp went up from the table. Tanya looked down in shock at the brown smear on her dress, the dress she had saved for, the dress she had felt so beautiful in just hours earlier. When she looked up, Michael's expression was a mix of horror and lingering anger. For a moment, neither of them moved. The entire ballroom seemed to have gone silent, though Tanya knew that was just her perception, her world narrowing to this awful, humiliating moment. Michael began. But Tanya turned away, grabbing her clutch from the table. She needed air. She needed space. She needed to be anywhere but here, with cake on her dress and tears threatening to spill from her eyes. As she walked rapidly toward the exit, she could hear Michael calling after her. She didn't look back. She couldn't. If she did, she might fall apart completely, and she had already been humiliated enough for one evening.